You know that feeling when you scroll through endless listings, see a sleek soundbar that promises the ultimate Dolby Atmos experience, and you picture yourself finally getting that cinematic boom for movie night only to end up with a thin meh sound that barely makes the dialogue clear enough to follow a plot twist? I've been there, and I've also heard friends complain that a fancy sub looks great on the box but ends up sounding like a muted thump that never really hits the room. That's why today's review is all about helping you avoid that disappointment and actually figure out if the Sonos Arc Ultra bundle, the soundbar, the sub-4 subwoofer, and the pair of Era 100 speakers truly upgrades your living room audio or just adds another pricey gadget to the shelf. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's dig in, because buying a high-end sound system isn't just about matching colors to your couch. It's about making sure the dialogue stays crystal clear when you binge a drama, that the bass feels real enough to rattle a small apartment floor, and that the whole setup actually fits the space you've got. First off, what makes a soundbar worth the investment? For most people, the deal-breaker is dialogue clarity. You've probably been in a living room where the actor's whispers get lost behind a noisy soundtrack, forcing you to crank the volume and end up with a tinny mess. The Arc Ultra claims to be perfectly tuned for the room, which basically means Sonos has built-in room calibration software that uses the microphones in the sub and the Era speakers to balance frequencies automatically. In real-world testing, that translates to being able to hear a whispered line in a thriller without turning the TV up to a level that makes your neighbors complain. If you watch a lot of dialogue-heavy shows, think crime dramas or sitcoms, that automatic tuning is a genuine time-saver compared to fiddling with equalizer sliders yourself. Next, bass performance. The Sub-4 is a separate wireless unit that promises to feel the bass. In a typical two-person apartment, a 4-inch sub can still deliver a satisfying low-end punch without the wobble that sometimes makes walls shake in smaller rooms. I tried it with a recent action film, and the explosions were present enough to add excitement, yet the sub didn't dominate the mids so much that you lost the on-screen footsteps or quiet moments. For larger living rooms or open-plan spaces, the Sub-4's wireless nature lets you place it wherever the floor can handle a little vibration, under a couch, against a wall, or even on a sturdy bookshelf, so you can tailor the bass to the room's shape. Now, what about the Era 100 speakers? Most people assume you need a full surround sound system to get a theater feel, but Sonos markets these as wireless surround that work with the Arc Ultra to create a wider soundstage. In practice, they sit on either side of the couch and bounce ambient effects, rain, wind, crowd murmur around the room. When I set them up for a gaming session, the directional cues felt more natural than a single soundbar alone, and the wireless connection meant no extra cables cluttering the floor. The Era 100s also double as stereo speakers for music, so on a quiet evening you can stream a playlist and get a surprisingly balanced soundstage without needing a separate bookshelf pair. Connectivity is another area where many soundbars stumble. Some require you to juggle HDMI-RC, optical, and a handful of Bluetooth devices, often leading to a frustrating remote that feels like a maze. The Arc Ultra simplifies that with a single HDMI-RC connection for TV audio, plus built-in Wi-Fi for Spotify, Apple Music, and the Sonos app. The remote is minimal: a few buttons for volume, mute, and a dedicated voice button that triggers either Alexa or Google Assistant, depending on your preference. In real use, I could say, "Hey Google, turn the volume down," while the movie was on, and the system responded instantly, which is a subtle but welcome convenience for a home theater setup. Let's talk about the downside. The biggest practical weakness I noticed is the reliance on a strong Wi-Fi network. Because the sub and the Era speakers are wireless, any hiccup in your router's signal can cause a brief drop in bass or surround effect, especially if the sub is placed far from the router. In a house where the Wi-Fi is already juggling multiple smart devices, you might see occasional desynchronization that, while not catastrophic, can be a bit jarring during a fast-paced chase scene. A wired sub option isn't offered, so if you're in a spot with spotty Wi-Fi, you might need a Wi-Fi extender or a power line adapter to keep the audio lockstep. Another consideration is the price point. The Arc Ultra bundle sits firmly in the premium tier, And while the 4.7-star rating from over 600 reviewers suggests most owners are happy, you're still paying for the brand's ecosystem and the convenience of wireless placement. If you're a casual TV watcher who only cranks the volume for sitcoms, you might not extract enough value to justify the expense. On